Yeah. And then I think we will use this time to let other people come in to indeed talk a bit about the Green Sprint. Me and Pamela started the Green Sprint around a year ago, and our goal, our purpose is to accelerate the global sustainability transition. Everything we do is focused on this. So within the Green Sprint, we focus on this with our client work, we focus on accelerating the sustainability transition. And with the sustainability sessions, we do so as well. So the idea behind the sustainability sessions is that in order for people around the world to accelerate the sustainable transition and be able to act on sustainability challenges, we have to know what we're talking about. And we also really have to start collaborating, because this is a global crisis we're facing. And it's important that we tackle this together, share knowledge, share ideas, break out of silos, collaborate. And this is the whole idea behind the sustainability sessions. So every month we pick a different topic. So far we did, for example, life cycle analysis and the transition from dairy to plant-based food. We did green marketing and all of these elements that have anything to do with accelerating the sustainable transition. And today we want to start talking about purpose, because purpose, we think, also plays a major role in this role. So today we have three awesome speakers on, Marinma, Carrie, and Justin. And I'll ask themselves to introduce themselves a bit later, because they can do that a lot better than I can. And but then we're going to talk about sustainability. And I think the awesome thing of this panel is that we all got to know each other because we spoke up on LinkedIn. We used our voice, we talked about sustainability, we talked about purpose, and that is how we found each other. And now we are collaborating and actually like making things happen and accelerating this transition. And I think that is very important, like the power of just communicating and speaking up and collaborating. So it's awesome that it is how this panel got together. So I think we can get started, and I'll ask Justin to just briefly introduce himself before we start the panel discussion later.
Fantastic. Thank you, Minu. Yeah, it's just wonderful to be here. And, you know, as you rightly said, LinkedIn was where we met basically through that wonderful thing of collaboration. And I like to call it active collaboration, the ability to reach out to different people. But it is very much an active thing. And I suspect that will come up in conversation later around purpose as well. I mean, I suppose my focus, as I've looked at it and I've examined it, particularly during this whole year of nearly a year of lockdown and restrictions, I've really realized just how my focus is totally around basically helping people and planet. You know, that could be at the local level in the community during the lockdowns, or it could be more formally. You know, when we talk about helping people formally in my work, that's going to be training events. They can be quite large or quite small, and indeed one-to-one coaching sessions. And in particular, I suppose I would say that my focus is really about helping people build their skills, their confidence, their belief in themselves to be the best version of themselves. And that's what I love. I get huge satisfaction when you see that, you know, that sort of spark in people's sort of, eyes, or what they say, or in their heart of like, okay, brilliant, I'm moving forward in the direction that I want to go. It's so important and really fuels what I do. When we think about the planet side in helping the planet, and it's from the very small things like sorting out a neighbor's recycling through to, you know, advocacy, influencing people on LinkedIn, taking direct action or volunteering, or even directing my money towards good causes that I feel help make this planet a better place. And when I speak about that, I really do mean all the plants, all the animals that deserve our care, not just for their own lives, but for the fact that they support all of us, all of humanity. So that's really a little bit of background to me, and I'll stop there.
Awesome, Justin, thanks. I think you said a lot of interesting stuff already that we will definitely loop back to later.
Sure, I'm excited.
For now, Kerry, do you want to come on mic and introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me along. So, I've got to be honest and say I'm still quite young and new in my journey around sustainability. But what I love about LinkedIn is the ability to connect with other people who can help me and help my knowledge and understanding. So my experience is really in learning and development. I help individuals and teams and businesses to really unlock the potential in themselves. I've been doing that for many, many years. I used to work for big corporate organizations, but actually in the last year and a half, I set my own business up. So that was really around, it gave me the opportunity, I suppose, to really be clear around my own personal purpose and my mission and my values and all the things that really drive me. So yeah, relatively new to sustainability, but I have a healthy appetite to learn more. But my background is, I say, really in people development, purpose, building highly effective teams. And that's what really drives me now.
I think that is the awesome thing of this panel, is that you're all at very different stages of like embracing sustainability. Marimba just went all the ways. It's like sustainability, that's it. Justin calls himself a sustainability influencer, and is really going into that direction, and you're still exploring. And I think those stages of like how far you can go and how you can get a step further and further on that sustainability ladder, it's just fascinating. Thank you, Gary. Marimba.
Right, hi, my name is Marimba. I'm from Spain. I live now in the Netherlands. And yeah, my journey is a little bit different in the sense that the first 18 years of my career, I was in the oil industry and the renewable industry. So a lot of different things. My background is technical. So I studied chemical and petroleum engineering. And I went into sales of software for both oil and gas companies and for the renewable energy. So I knew a lot about all the side of the different sides of the energy equation. And when I realized in my business development jobs is that there was not really a meaningful purpose. I was getting burnout because my managers were like, hey, where is the money? So Monday mornings were like, hey guys, we have $400,000 more to go. Let's go and get them. And that got to a point which it was not really satisfying. I wanted to be connected with something. So I went to the internet and I found the passion test. So there is one of the things that I do is to help companies and individuals to find their passion. And I was doing all that until the pandemic or COVID hit. And then when everything stopped here in the Netherlands, like overnight, the sky was bluer, the plants were greener. I don't know if anybody had that experience or it was just me going crazy, but then it's like nature was talking to me and it was telling me, it's time to wake up. And then I realized that I had the passion. I've been doing for 8 years a lot of things with my personal passion, but I was missing the purpose. I realized the passion was about what energized me, and purpose was about what I could contribute to society. So I decided to do everything that I do, all the coaching, absolutely everything, only to sustainability related companies and people. So now I only have clients. If they're individuals, they're looking to go into sustainability positions. If they are companies, they are looking to the sustainability. That's it. Okay, I talk too much. Shut up.
Not at all, not at all. I love this. I love this whole approach to I'm only going to work with sustainability professionals or people moving into that sphere. That's awesome. Thank you. So last but not least, I want to ask Pamela to come on mic and just briefly introduce herself as the second half of the Green Sprint.
Yay, that's fun. Yeah, Marimba always makes me smile, and when I talk to her, she's just so passionate in her everything. And our journeys are actually quite similar. I don't have 18 years, just 10, but in corporate as well, and mostly in marketing and customer experience. And I got into that essentially when I studied innovation way back, because I was always questioning, why do we do things a certain way? Why did we create this business this way? Why are companies only focused on this? Back then, sustainability, I mean, I was like a ranger for the Worldwide Fund when I was growing up, like probably most of us kids were like all involved in all those things. But I never saw it as a career option. And it was not something when I started working that was really happening that much. But as I worked in the corporate world, I just became fascinated by the topic, and I had like all these questions in my head, like, but wait a minute, why are we making all these products and creating more stuff that people really don't need, and then we design them for obsolescence, so they have to buy another one in a year or two? This is crazy. So that made me reconsider everything. Yeah, it made me kind of spiraled into a full-blown existential crisis. I bought a camper van and went to Portugal with the idea of buying a farm and just, you know, building my own utopia. And it was in that journey that I started really learning about what sustainability is, how we can actually activate our own agency and what we can as individuals can do, and how we can influence companies or governments or other things around us. Yeah, and then last year, Minu already said it, Minu and I met, and well, the rest is not history yet, but history in the making. So yeah, with the Green Sprint now, we help organizations to become more sustainable. I think Minu quickly mentioned the sustainability ladder. It's something that we wrote about in our ebook. Sorry, shameless self-promotion. How do you climb the sustainability ladder as an organization? And the last tier of that ladder is a purpose-driven organization. So purpose links in basically with everything that we do as well. Yeah, so I'm talking too much to Marinma, so back to you, Minu, and on to the panel discussion. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's true. Like everyone says so much. I have so many questions already in my head that I want to ask. I think a good one to get started with, and this is one to all of you in the panel, because you all mentioned that at some point you moved into the direction of working with purpose. Like, okay, what am I doing? What is this corporate job, or what is this life that I'm living? Where's the purpose? And I'm very curious, like, once you found that, how did that change how you view, not only how you view your like daily work life, but also how much effort you could put into it? Because I can imagine that the moment you find a purpose, you're willing to work way harder and you're willing to go that extra mile. And but for me, I have never worked in corporate. I've never experienced this not purpose exist. I don't even know how that would, like, I had purpose from the beginning of my career. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. But I can imagine that shift is very refreshing. So I wonder how was that for you all? I saw that Justin came off mic, so please.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting because, you know, I'm sure a lot of people on this event are keen on sustainability and are worried about the planet and where we're going. And obviously last week with President Biden being inaugurated, we feel a little bit of a sense of relief and hope with his intention to rejoin the Paris Agreement. So, but at the same time, and I definitely found this, that there's this sort of concern that, you know, will it be enough? Is it going to be too little, too late? And it's very easy, and I'll explain my story. I have found myself in a sort of spiral that goes downwards, thinking, there's no hope, we are doomed. And then I think to myself, and I've had to work hard on this, because at that point you can give up and you say, well, it doesn't matter then, I can do what I like, there's no point because we're all doomed. But then, and I worked hard, as I say, I looked into a kind of philosophy around this. And I thought, okay, so what's going on here? Why do I not give up? Why do I continue? Why do I try to just make even just small changes? Why? And I realized a few things were going on. One, I could be completely wrong. And, you know, all these things will add up and we'll, you know, everything will be fine. Brilliant. That's certainly possible. But there's something which I found more rewarding, and that was around this concept of good. Good, just inherent good. So let's take something incredibly simple. A snail is crossing a footpath. Now you have a choice. I could just walk past that snail or even a slug and hope that the next person coming along does not stand on it and squash it. Or alternatively, I could lift that snail or slug up and move it somewhere I feel is safer, and that life of that one slug is continued longer than it would have been. And that's the action I will now choose, always. And the reason for that is because if you look at that one act on its own, it feels to me almost morally, inherently good. It is a good act. There's nothing bad about it. And therefore, if, we do these good things, even if, and I don't want to paint as a vision of, doom, but even if in the long term, actually, humans' existence on Earth is limited, it doesn't matter, because all these good things that we do are inherently good in their own nature. And I find that incredibly compelling and helpful, and makes me realize, of course, it's worth doing these things. Because anything that you do that makes people's lives better or animals' lives better, longer, happier, is a good thing. So let's do it. And the second thing, and this is really recent, seriously recent, just like 10 days ago, I thought to myself, what is it that drives me? What is it that drives me both at the human end, but also at the biodiversity end? And I realized it comes down to one word. Injustice. I really can't bear injustices, and that's when I get really, really sad when I see people, not animals and biodiversity, but people being unjustly treated. So I'm fascinated by international affairs and what's going on in the world, but that's nothing to do with sustainability, but it is to do with injustices. And I can't bear it. I will be crying. If any of you have seen the film Dr. Zhivago, at the end of that film, there's a moment, and it's just a small moment, and I'm in floods of tears because it represents injustice. And it's the same with biodiversity. That is under attack from humans, and it's an injustice to nature and what is good for all of us. So I found this, and literally in the last 10 days, and it's incredible. It's really helped me just think, just keep doing this. It's brilliant. It's hard, but it's worth striving for. So I'll stop there, but I get so excited because
that is amazing. I feel fascinated for what you have said about doing that small little action.
Yes.
I really thank you for sharing that with a lot of vulnerability.
Thank you Maria.
Yeah, I would like to know more about people, how they, what are the reasons they find not to give up? Because there is so much information flying around in terms of how difficult it is, that it's just very difficult to hold on to something that's really going to help us to get through.
And you said for people not to give up, Maria.
Sorry, maybe I said it wrong. Yeah, not to give up on purpose, not to give up on the cause of sustainability. What are the reasons that you guys find not to give up?
I'll let Kerry maybe speak. I've got my own thoughts on that, but Kerry, especially as you said you were quite new into all this sustainability interests, it'd be great to hear.
So purpose, we had this discussion the other day, didn't we, around what is your personal purpose? How did you end up here? And I think from a really early on in my career, I knew, quite similar to what you said, Justin, I knew that the thing that drove me was being able to help somebody to become a better version of themselves from a capability perspective, to learn more stuff, to do things differently and better than they did before. So that was always something that drove me in the corporate world. But back in that world, I found myself driving, and literally quite recently, a couple of years ago, 40,000 miles a year, staying away from home 4 or 5 nights a week. And then you get to a point and you think, why have I done that? And then the opportunity came for me to set my own business up. And I was really, really clear from the start about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. So I was really driven to support corporate clients because I needed to do that from an income perspective, but I only wanted to work 3 days a week and 9 months of the year, because that would allow me to do the stuff that I found really fulfilling for kind of charity and third sector organizations, to use some of the tools, the diagnostic tools, the development kind of tools, the behavioral profiling with other organizations and people that otherwise wouldn't get it. So I love the fact that I'm still doing what I do. I just do it differently. I've driven 2,000 miles this year, and that probably isn't just from a COVID perspective. That's probably because I kind of really questioned myself about why did I need to get in a car and drive further away, or why did I need to get on a plane? And it's just not necessary, is it? So I think a lot of the stuff that I do now, not only is it more virtual, but it's just, for me, I feel like I'm adding more value to the people that I'm working with, and say whether I'm doing stuff pro bono or if I'm doing stuff for corporate clients. So for me, that's totally where my purpose comes in. And as I say, I'm still learning around what I can do differently from a sustainability perspective. But I've learned so much in the last year from Minu and Juliana and loads of other contacts that I'm learning from all the time. So I just love to hear what I can do differently, because you talked about it's the small things, and actually, as a business owner and as a parent, I feel like I have a responsibility to, and I can start with the small things, which is what I'm doing, but I just, want to move into that, understand what more I can do, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, if we think, Marima and Kerry, about the whole thing of giving up, there is an assessment, there's a self-reflection to do. And Kerry, you've obviously made an active choice to change some of your lifestyle. And I think it's the same with all of this topic around sustainability. It's an active decision to do something. How do we stop people, giving up? To some extent, I think there's an opportunity to show people new pathways, and also the joy. There's so much joy to be had when we make alterations, when we see, I don't know, a new forest being planted, and maybe we get involved with that, or even go back to my story of the slug or the snail. I did it recently with my brother, and he's got 2 very young children, and we were walking to the children's school, and there were some other children, and I picked up this bright orange slug, and one child's reaction was because they've been conditioned, but I didn't give up. I just thought, just be gentle, show them it, and talk to people about the wonders or the things that are fascinating about it. Like in this case, it's an incredible color, but also the feeling of the slime on me, was interesting. So I think maybe it's this, because it is hard. We know there's a lot of climate anxiety out there. We know it.
Right. I wanted to say something about this, about the climate anxiety. I think that one of the things that we cannot get wrong is that we had to strive for it. I think that one thing that I'm determined to do is to help as many people as possible to connect with their own individual purpose for individuality. I cannot even say anything. Okay, I start again. Their own individual purpose for sustainability. I am an early bird, so I get up at 6:30 in the morning every day. So at this time of night, I am like, woo! All right. So their individual passion. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that someone can be really into agroforestry. Somebody can be really into biodiversity. Somebody could be even something technical like carbon capture, utilization, and storage. That's more my thing, because that's where I come from kind of the technology side. But if each of us can do something on sustainability based on something that we already love, then there is no striving. I said that I'm the technology, but really my thing is coaching as well. Right? So when I'm going to help sustainability teams, I'm going to be coaching the leaders and I'm going to be coaching the teams. So what it will not make sense at this point for me is to go and sell software again, because that's not my passion. But someone else could love to sell sustainability software. Well, if that's your thing, go ahead and do it. But don't try to do something that you don't like. For sustainability, don't strive for it. Yeah, somebody said something? Somebody was trying to say something.
I think you're absolutely right. The fascinating thing with this is that within sustainability, whatever you do, there is a sustainability profession in it. If you're a baker, you can be a sustainable baker. If you're a banker, you can be a sustainable banker. There is always like, it's a societal global transition we have to make. So if your purpose goes in that direction, whatever you do, there is something you can do there. There was something very fascinating that Justin said, like when people don't give up. And he said, people are inherently good, which I absolutely think is absolutely true. And I think if we tap into this, if we tap into making other people around the world believe again that people are inherently good, that we as human beings deserve to be on this planet and deserve to thrive, and deserve to collaborate and be communities and like really coexist with this earth, then we have to start taking care of the earth as well, because like, I mean, we often have this discussion. The planet is going to be fine without us. I think really, no humans, it's fine. But it's probably, or at least according to us, it's probably more awesome, more beautiful with human beings on it, because we bring so much to it. Like we bring creativity and storytelling and empathy and all of those things. So if we find ways, like not only that people tap into their purpose when it comes to environmentalism, but really love to love people, then we also have to love the earth. And I think that is where you can beautifully connect that social and environmental part of like working towards a purpose. I saw you coming off mic, Justin. You want to say something?
No, it's just...
Sorry, I was going to add something to it, but Justin, go on.
No, go Pam, go Pam.
Well, I was going to add, I saw earlier on the mural board, I saw someone wrote, it's finding my why. I think they deleted it again already. I don't know who wrote that exactly, but that's okay. In the end, it's asking, like having the courage to ask that question. Why am I here? Why are we here as humans? Exactly as Manu said, the planet will be fine without us. So there must be some reason, something we can add to the planet to make it more interesting, to make it more fun, to make like creativity, adding all those things together. Baby Jessie Parker said I wrote it. Okay, thank you. No, Mike, that's okay. Yeah, and if you do that, like nobody, I don't know. I think this is like a whole philosophical debate that you can have on are humans inherently good, or do we all have a balance of good and evil? Like these are spiritual philosophy questions that you have to ask yourself. But definitely like the idea that we as humans are essentially good is not the premise that our planet and our society was built on. And that is actually really interesting. So if we peel that down a little bit, yeah, exactly. The concept of yin and yang, exactly. But yeah, so the idea, like for instance, our economy, for instance, is built on Homo economicus, which is the idea that humans are rational, egocentrical, and they will strive for their own, they will only make choices for their own benefit. And we don't really question that. We kind of built an entire system around that, but we don't really question that assumption that much. Yeah. Whereas if you do it on an individual level, I don't think anybody is going to say that they will always make a rational decision, or I don't think we can agree with that, basically. So it's very interesting to see that we've built a system on that premise. Whereas if you break it down into your own life, like you picking up the slug, you don't do that for you. You do that has no benefit for you. So from the idea of Homo economicus, that makes no sense at all, that behavior. And yet we build our entire economy around that. Anyway, that was my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I love that picking up the slack because
raise his hand. Sorry, Marima.
No, that I love that the picking up the slack is a connection with your own personal values. Period. If it's a value of beauty, it's a value of good, that's what you do. So we can do things connected with values without necessarily having to strive for profit.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay. So I'm super excited for a participant to come on mic. So Bukra.
Yeah, while I don't agree with many of the things that are being said at the philosophical level, I want to ask some practical questions here. One of them is what I heard was like giving up was a term that has been used. What I look around, what I see, I don't see people that many who are giving up, but I see a lot of people who don't have the sustainability as their value. That is what I see. Or I see the people who think that they have the sustainability as value, but they don't know how to approach to it in their practically in their daily lives. So, how can we, let's say, get the people about having the sustainability as a value in their lives, which is independent from if they feel it ethically good or not? It might be a reason to get it as a value, but that doesn't have to be. That is number one. Number two is how can we apply, if we already have the sustainability in our lives as a value, then how can we apply it? So I think these two questions are more popular than people who are giving up, in my opinion. That's what I observe. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and maybe I could just answer Bugra. Yeah, I think the point about the giving up is very relevant to those people who are already interested. We know that there is this these climate anxieties that a lot of people have, and these are people that who care and sort of need that trigger to make them regain their confidence in what can be done. And I do believe that we can do that, and I do believe that the way to do that is through sharing good stories, sharing information. There's you might be familiar, Bugra, with one of our LinkedIn friends called Russ Avery, and he's launched, along with some of his colleagues, something called #TackleTheCrisis, and it's all about bringing positive stories. And I think that can help a lot. Your question regarding how do others apply, who may not be quite so passionate as many of the people in this audience today, how do they perhaps bring that sustainability value into their lives? Well, I think it's up to us to inspire and do our best job to inspire. I don't think it's just going to happen, although it might happen to some extent if it hurts them. So if something actually hurts them financially or emotionally, you might see some change. But without that, then I do think it is up to people to inspire. And that can be you and me and all of us here. It can also be, of course, our leaders in our countries. I'm not sure which country you're from, Bugra. The name is interesting. But, politicians have a huge amount of influence, and they need to get hold of the stories and embrace them. And we're seeing some change there. So, I'm hopeful from that perspective of bringing more people on board in this journey. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Bugra. I do think it's not easy, but I think there's everything to play for here. We really can do some of this to help other people understand the importance of it.
So I definitely understand you. One of the, I observe various problems in the world nowadays. Sustainability is one of those problems. There are a few other problems, and many of them are related to making the people feel sensitive about certain things and having necessary education level, mindset level to bring them to there. And to tell the truth, it is like, I feel that, okay, this inspiration is quite a good one, yes, but you already touch a very important thing, which is, in my opinion, is one of the biggest challenges here, which is practically they need to see a value of this thing. So from sustainability perspective, actually, that is one of the things that sustainability suffers from. You can only see the practical benefit in the long term, and until you come to that point, it will be too late. Like if nature is getting destroyed and you can't turn after that point. And the moment that you will start feeling more the impact, then this is kind of starting getting towards the end of the story. So we need to act it as soon as possible on these issues. But to tell the truth, I did not see that much of a practical, let's say, approaches in various domains, including sustainability, about how to make the people feel that this is coming in the long term and feel the effects directly within the current time period. You're definitely right. Like, people don't act if they don't see the immediate benefit or immediate, let's say, pain out of it. However, in my opinion, we need to collaborate with other sensitive points, not only sustainability, but there are a lot of various points similar, and about how to make the people feel, let's say, this in the short term, to make a habit change, which is one of the most challenging things in the world nowadays.
Absolutely. I think Livy says something very interesting that taps into this. She says that she would argue that we shouldn't only talk about sustainability. We don't even have to talk about sustainability, as long as we talk about other topics that are closely related to it and that can also move people towards that direction. For example, health, well-being, family, community. Someone the other day said something very interesting. He said the interesting thing about sustainability is that you can always find something in it that is interesting for someone. People are passionate about something. It doesn't have to be sustainability, but everybody loves something. It could also be drinking beer or eating hamburgers or I don't know, going skydiving. But all of those things, they can only happen, and we can only live if we go about it in a sustainable way. And if we have a long-term vision and think of like, how can we make sure that we are not only taking care of the planet right now and not only have this short-term vision, but like, if we want to drink beer in 100 years, we probably have to take care of our crops now and later. So I think that is very interesting. Like, you don't have to talk about becoming green. You can find a way in for everybody. So I think Pam also wants to add something to this. You are muted.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I was a little bit distracted by some stuff happening in the chat. Well, there's already been so much being said, but I was listening to what Barbara said in the beginning, like two angles here. Like, one, the people that are already interested, but they lack the practical tools. Like, how do I actually do this in my life? So the easy answer would be there's already a lot of information out there. Like, there are really tiny hacks that you as an individual can implement in your life. I mean, the easiest one and maybe the open door would be turn to a vegetarian diet whenever you can, because that's going to have a really large impact in the end on the sustainable transition. But there are many other things. And like I said, I think in the beginning, I really find it very interesting to see what happens when people who are actually interested find their agency and figure out what it is exactly that they can influence. So finding their sphere of influence. Even if it is you becoming that one crazy vegetarian or vegan person and other people are like, what the hell are you doing? But still, it's going to have an impact. You may not see it straight away, but you are going to have an influence on other people there as well. And I think the other angle, I think there was something in another question in the chat as well. One of the reasons that we want to work with businesses is because there are still going to be a lot of people with every change, if it's sustainability or if it's technology or anything that's changing, there will always will be people who don't want to change. And they're going to be the laggards at the end who are not going to pick up and are not going to pick up that towel and are going to go like, yeah, okay, let's go do this. And that's why we need other players in that system, like the government, like organizations. So I love an expression from Buckminster Fuller, who says, if you want to make change in a system, create something new that makes the old thing obsolete. So even coming back to Björn in the beginning, that's why I love that they have a module of sustainability with interaction design, because this is actually going to help nudge other people to make better choices and to give them alternatives and other opportunities to choose something better. And even hopefully in the end, that's going to be the only option and not just a choice anymore.
May I say something about agency?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for bringing the topic of agency. because I think that this is really something that's happening now, is more and more we have the ability to be responsible for our actions instead of blaming and shaming others, which is very typical. You know, we're all the time talking about politicians, about this and about that. And then this is, in a very big extent, is an individual topic as well. I read an article the other day that I was shocked. It says something about 36, I don't know, gigatons or trillion tons of CO2 due to the global oil and gas industry. And then I look at that figure, it's like, where's that coming from? And then I realized where that was coming from. So the article attributed all the CO2 emissions due to every travel, every traveling, every flight, every transportation, any electricity consumption, any plastic that we consume, absolutely everything, to one industry. So when I take a flight, I use something made of plastic, or this made of plastic, or the energy that has been used for the aluminum in my MacBook, everything, I have zero responsibility. Everything is attributed to 200,000 people that are working in the oil and gas industry. That is crazy. Is that we had to put at least some individual responsibility in the individuals that are using the products. I would love to know what you think about this, because that article was so extreme that made me realize that we are completely in one side of the equation, that doesn't make sense anymore. We must take some responsibility for the use of our daily life. Right now I have, you know, a radiator is burning natural gas to produce, you know, hot water for my comfort. Where is my responsibility there? I'd like to know what you think. Agency, do I have any agency? Any questions? I mean, answers?
I could maybe add to that, because I have a question, or a thought rather, that an issue that I think of a lot, and it's, first of all, a little bit of background. I live in Sweden. I'm part of the rich part of the world. I can afford to be sustainable in many ways, and I also have a government that supports sustainable options, so I have them available for me. It's quite easy for me to take the bike, for instance, because there's bicycle infrastructure. It's easy for me to choose vegetarian options because they are everywhere in the store. But I'm thinking a lot about you're talking about individual responsibility, and that's easy for me, but how is it in a large part of the world where maybe green energy isn't an option, either because you can't afford it or because it's not available? There's a lot of countries. I live in the US, for instance. I couldn't bicycle in the US. There was no way. I had to rent a car, even though I didn't want to. So just a little bit of maybe discussion on that. I would love to hear what you think of different levels I'm working on, because I can work on my own level, but Sweden is a small country. It's a very small part of the world, and it's also the rich and the not so. We're not the affected ones, if you say, about the problems of sustainability. That is mainly the poorer parts of the world. And how would you see the individual versus governmental?
Be careful with that, because we are all interconnected. Rich countries and poor countries, global warming, and natural
absolutely.
disasters.
No, I'm not saying that we're not affected. It's just that we're less affected, if you know what I mean. The droughts are not as severe here
so far
as they are in.
I think I understand what you mean. It's something called buffer zones. And it's actually, it is a problem. There are zones around the Earth where we know that climate change is going to hit harder, sea level rising is going to hit harder. And these are indeed often developing countries, which also have less resources to deal with this. And we definitely have to do something about this. And this is actually where racial justice meets environmentalism. difficult word apparently, especially because we cannot have buffer zones when we have racial justice, because then we really have to take care of everyone living everywhere, and we do have to consider indeed that like our actions for the last 150, 200, 300 years do determine the situation that people are living in certain zones around the world. But what Marima says is also very correct. We are interconnected. So we cannot solve this with a us versus them approach, and also not from silos. So we have to find ways to collaborate and see, okay, like how can our actions here help out there, maybe share knowledge or share resources, share solutions, collaborate on those levels as well. I have a lot of hands in the air, so I want to start with Libby.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to add to the thing about the agency and also maybe feed in a bit about individual change. So I work around behaviour change for sustainability. And one of the things about this idea of making everybody, like how do we get everyone to care? We don't have time for that. The biggest way that change can occur is by infrastructure changes, because infrastructure changes, say like you're talking about your energy provision, you know, we're in wherever people are, you know, it's really cold here. We don't have a choice of what kind of, we do have some choices, but our infrastructure is pretty fixed. If the energy grid changes, and then people don't have to make the right decision. They don't have to decide about cost. So it's like, if the infrastructure changes, we'll get mass behavior change, and people won't have to be changed by their values, which is, we don't have time for that. So I would really advocate for infrastructure change. A lot of that needs individuals to say, this isn't okay, you know, at a supermarket level where people are complaining about plastics, that's where that's changing because of that. And then the infrastructure changes, and those laggards don't have to make a decision, it's made for them. We need the change from the top and the bottom, but I really advocate infrastructure change. That's that.
Bugra, do you want to come on?
Yeah, Marima touched upon an important point that was there before sustainability discussions came quite popular in the last years. So that is the responsibility of the individuals towards society. So one example is we are part of a democratic environment in many countries. And what do you expect from a citizen living in a democratic environment? They go for voting. And like say, the responsibility is voting itself, but you actually vote with some kind of conscious level that you did your research before you make a decision about your voting, right? Which is not even ideal in many countries. Like people who are voting are not really fulfilling their expected responsibility of being informed, like spending time to learn about what each party says, and based on that, they are expected to make their decision, but this doesn't happen. Marima touched in a similar topic with the sustainability. So nowadays, many, let's say, philosophers actually claim that like the expectation from an average citizen actually changed. One of the things is
when you kindly invited me, Minu, to join this session and talk about purpose, one of the things that absolutely, you know, went straight to me, to my core, was this concept of values. And I feel so strongly that it's a set of values that underpin purpose. So we might have a purpose, we might have a vision of where we're going in our lives and everything, but behind that are these values. And I suppose, again, thinking more about this subject, I've thought how if we understand what drives us from a value perspective, we can build our purpose, and then to drive that forward, it's something about having what I'm going to call intense focus. And I know you described, Minu, in one of your LinkedIn adverts, if we can call it that purpose equals intention plus action. And I really do like that definition. What I then am reminded of, and it's so true in so much of the work I do, that we have to be intentional about it, otherwise nothing happens. So intense focus around one's values can help us drive towards that purpose. So just an opening sort of food for thought for people, for my fellow panelists here on this concept of values driving purpose. And I'm reminded, Kerry, what you said about how you change your life to, bring about that. And I'm wondering, were values strong in making that change, and how it created a new purpose for you, maybe, or a clearer purpose? Maybe that's the way to look at it.
I think interesting question. I think it's easier when you have your own business to really use your own values and your own purpose to drive what you do. I know I said I worked for 20 years in large corporate organizations, and although I think the corporate purpose probably influenced how long I stayed there for and whether I was attracted to actually go work for them in the first place, you don't have a lot of influence, do you, on an individual level? And I don't know about you, but I work with teams now. I work with teams, helping them to define their purpose, sometimes with large organizations. And actually what I found, it's quite interesting that only a small percentage of them, I would say, are really clear on their team purpose and their organizational purpose. And I think that's fascinating. And a lot of the leaders that I'm working with at the moment, obviously the team purpose and the organizational purpose has probably changed quite significantly over the last 12 months as a result of COVID, the purpose that they had at the start of the year. But actually, I think that gives organizations a massive opportunity to really look at what they do, why they do it, and how they do it. It's a great opportunity.
Great, totally. If I may add something, I'm also working with companies, helping them to clear their purpose. And one thing that I wanted to throw also out there is that I believe that we have raised our consciousness as mankind because we have so much information. We have evolved things like meditation, mindfulness, passion and purpose. You couldn't talk about these things in a corporate setting a few years ago, and now they are mainstream. So I'm going to throw something in there and see if people agree with this. I think that more and more our intentions are transparent. When I was working in a corporate world many years ago, and we were talking bad, I'm not going to say with which company, we were bad-mouthing our clients in the meetings. So I heard people say, oh, those idiots, they don't buy our products because they don't understand them, so and so. And then the same people were going to those clients and pretend that they really like them. I believe that today is more and more difficult to hide your true intentions, which is your true purpose. That's why the organizations that say they are sustainable, but they don't really care, what do we call them? Greenwashing, right? Because their intentions are transparent. So I wanted to find out, what you think about this. I really think that it's more and more transparent, and that companies and individuals cannot really hide behind, an image anymore.
There's something interesting in what you said, Marima. So I'll just talk about one of my clients, which is an automotive company. Now, not what you might expect. They deal with secondhand vehicles, trading them. So from my perspective, I think, great, we're reusing. I'm happy with that. However, it's fair to say that not everyone is necessarily, super sustainable. I might have that view that, oh, brilliant, we're getting things reused, and I passionately believe in reuse, and that's great. What has been a real pleasure when I've worked with this client is that they've had such a, and they've got a wonderful chief people officer, and she's absolutely passionate about really attending to their people's needs, and they've been fantastic through this whole pandemic. I've been so impressed. And And when I've worked with them, what has been the joy for me is that at the root of, you know, every single class that I've worked with them on, particularly around my expertise of strengths, focusing on strengths, has been, you know, everyone's an individual trying to do a good job. Mm-hmm. And whether they're super sustainable or not, but I'm not, well, I learned in a way to sort of stand back a moment and think, you know what, everyone's lives are so different and we've all come at it from a different journey. And sometimes I feel there's a risk that, you know, if we assume that everyone on this call is keen on environmental and sustainable things, sometimes there's a danger that we forget that other people, it's not that they don't care, but it's maybe that they just haven't, their life hasn't brought them in that direction at this time. And it was just, I don't know why, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I'm just reflecting on the sort of the lovely story of humanity in a way, that actually, you know, the people I met, wonderful people. And of course, from my perspective, I'm going to make sure that I mention all these sort of good environmental things that I might do, you know, in the classroom about, I don't know, reusing the plastic cups or whatever it is, you know, the small things. But I was sort of struck how at a corporate level, any corporation can have a mission to do X, Y, and Z. Within that, you know, each individual person probably trying to do a good job and do good for their families and are generally nice people. You know, I'm generalizing a bit, and forgive me if I'm sort of wandering a bit, but I'm sort of playing with my thoughts here. And I find myself realizing, and I think it's interesting, Marima, particularly, you know, your focus very much on sustainable businesses. And I ask myself that question, you know, should I just focus on sustainable businesses? And the answer for myself is, well, no, because I can still bring my sort of passion for these things to life in all sorts of other businesses that may not, you know, be where I would perhaps want to be necessarily, but actually that's a good thing. You know, if I share these stories, if I tell people, and people know, you know, if I go back to my old employer, IBM, people know that Justin was the guy that would, you know, be taking the train from one country to another instead of flying. Did it change their behavior? Yes, it did. I know it does. So that is quite an exciting prospect. Sorry, I sort of feel I've spoken a little bit too much.
You are inspiring people. You are inspiring people because you're on sustainability example.
Yes.
So that's what you choose to do.
Yes.
That's what you choose to do. So
but
I
I'm
think
trying to think of their sort of purposes, and
each of us are going to choose something different.
Yes.
And I think that we shouldn't judge each other.
Correct.
It's both necessary. I think it's both absolutely vital. That like it's necessary that you work with sustainable companies and help them further. And it's also absolutely crucial that there are people who work with all companies or companies that are maybe not doing so well yet, because we have to pull each other up that sustainability ladder. And if we sort of run to the top of the sustainability ladder and go be the sustainability heroes on top of that ladder, but we let everyone down there, we don't pull them up, then what are we really doing? Like, so yeah, it's definitely the combination. I think Livy pointed it out as well. We need the bottom-up, top-down approach from all angles. So yeah, absolutely both crucial. And I think
build the bridge, right, Minu? We need to build the bridge between the people who are already there and the people that still are like on the other side in a way.
Completely. In those small things, I'm really taking away from today the example of the snail crossing the street. It really struck me, and I think I'm taking it with me in my heart because you were inspiring kids. Those kids are going to be teenagers, then adults, and they are going to go into families, into companies. So it's that butterfly effect. So sometimes it's the small things. And sometimes it's the bigger things. For example, I work with the Society of Petroleum Engineers, which is an organization that groups 180,000 professionals in the oil and gas industry. And I help companies in the oil industry who wants to do something to reduce CO2 emissions. So that could be one person in one organization that has the power to say, well, we are going to invest in carbon capture, but first you have to touch the heart, because it's going to start with one individual. So if you don't know whether it's that kid that was crossing the street with a snail or it's somebody else, sometimes it's that one person that we are going to inspire.
Well, in this case, Marima, let's have Gelson inspire us, because he's had his hand up for a while now.
Sorry.
No worries. It was all very interesting, but I want to make sure he has his moment too.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Gelson.
I think you maybe have to unplug your headphones too.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I have a hard time when you put this stress on the individuals, because too many things. I think the biggest share of the pollution are in the companies, the big companies. I think I saw in I think it was Carbon Report. I say that says that I think 100 companies are responsible for 71%, if I'm not mistaken, of the global emissions. So when you put stress on the individuals, it's a little bit maybe not putting stress on the right place where should the change happen. And so when you said that you can try to change one individual, and this one individual can change another one, and kind of create this chain. But and when we say that we can, everyone should change or have this mentality towards sustainability to try to change. But I think we have to analyze the context. For instance, I come from Brazil, and some people there, some people, or sometimes they barely have the opportunity to, let's say, eat meat. When they eat meat, for instance, it's kind of a moment for them, like and when they consume something like some electronics, and it's kind of, and you have this kind of pressure from TV, from advertising. So it's into kind of for them to give up of having these things that they kind of they live in a society that they are like the pressure to consume, it's kind of to consume. I think it's a little bit hard. I think depending of context, for upper middle class would be kind of a choice, but for them, I think it's a little bit harder.
I'm reminded, Gelson, of an interesting experience I had. I was working in my town, which is reasonably wealthy town. Well, it has variation, but it's fine. And it was something by our council, and we were talking to people about switching off their engines. And I do a lot of this anyway, using carefully crafted words, and it's very successful. But this was an official event. And I spoke to it was particularly targeted at the taxi drivers at the railway station. And I spoke to one of them, and I used my usual sort of technique of understanding, empathy, and persuasion, all blended together. And he said to me, and he was not cross, but he just said to me, he said, I'm just trying to live, earn a living to put food on the table for my family. And it's so powerful. There's this, and of course, things would be better for him in the longer run if he switched off his engine, of course. But right there, right now, it's about the short-term survival. And that survival instinct, we have to remember, is very powerful. And it drives every creature, actually, every animal, human or animal kingdom, to push for that short-term solution. And the long-term, it just waits. So you've kind of reminded me that for some people, it does not feel like a choice. And I have complete empathy for that. It makes total sense for me that someone will feel this way. It makes total sense. And so it becomes a more complicated question that we then have to, or challenge that we have to think about.
This is exactly, I think it kind of loops back to where we were at the beginning as well. Why social and sustainable are they're so strongly connected. Like you really cannot solve one crisis or tackle one issue without taking the other one into consideration. Like if we don't solve poverty, we will never get those people to think long term, because of course you're going to think about putting food on the table first. Of course. That is just, like you said, survival instinct. And we cannot blame anybody for that. We cannot even question it, because that's just common sense. So it is our responsibility to really, if we go about tackling any of those challenges, take the systems thinking approach, like see the bigger picture, really say, okay, how is this solution influencing or like interacting with other elements? And how can poverty or solving poverty, racism, sexism, education, all of those elements play a role as well in like tackling the sustainability crisis. So indeed, like you said, it is a much more complex problem to solve. And that is why I like the quote by Naomi Klein so much. She talks about like that the sustainable transition and that tackling this crisis, it's not just about like technological solutions. We really have to find ways to like change the behavior of human beings, the way we interact, the way we consume, the way we travel, all of those elements. Because if we don't do that, we are gonna push a lot of people who are already thinking about like short-term challenges and short-term survivals into even more into like problematic lifestyles and problematic issues. So yeah, that is a good point, Kelson. Thanks for pointing that out. I do think that by now we have been calling for almost 1.5 hours. I do love how interactive this whole evening was and is. We actually had this keeps happening to us. We actually had a whole schedule for tonight with breakout sessions and some things on the Miro board and like going back and forward. But then if the conversation is too interesting, we prefer to just like keep it going. So that happened again today. I don't want to wrap up yet. I just want to go into some final words as well and some insights from tonight. I do want to let you know that because these discussions are always so interesting and because it's such a complex problem and there's so many elements to it, we wanted to keep these discussions in the sustainability sessions sort of ongoing, because there are a lot of questions that we always have, and often they're answered not always by us, but by other participants in the community in the session. And that is why we started just this week. Now it's only me and Pamela, but I hope you guys will be the first to join an ongoing Slack channel for the sustainability sessions, where we can discuss any of these topics, sustainability topics, purpose topics. If you have a question or you want to solve a problem or you want to share some resources or anything that can help us collaborate and accelerate the sustainability transition, again, you can join us in that channel and we can keep this conversation going there. And then for now, I actually want to maybe ask for some final words and insights from the panelists. And then after that, thank you all and wrap this up so everyone can go about their evening and maybe can get a cup of tea or coffee.
For me, I would like just to wrap up with two things. The snail crossing the path and the agency. I will say that nobody in this planet is too poor and so disenfranchised that cannot help one snail to cross the road. So I believe in human beings. I believe in the small actions. I believe in their agency and their ability to change their life. And I think that with everybody doing what they can in their circumstances, we can really create a better future and a healthier planet.
So shall I go next? So, well, what fascinating discussions. It strikes me that there's so many things that can influence so many parts of this discussion. And we were talking then about different communities, different groups, different backgrounds. Actually, the other thing that fascinates me personally is personal reactions to things. And we all have our own personal reactions to things, don't we? We all behave in a certain way. We all prefer to do things rather than others. It's easier for some of us to speak out, and others it's easiest for some of us to share ideas than others. So I suppose for me it's just about, I will continue to look and seek out views. And I know there's some people in here who've been really inspirational to me and helping me understand what I can do, taking a snail across a path as an example, but other small things to make a big difference. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. It's quite funny. I had no idea this the snail or the slug going across the path would be so influential this evening, and I hope it is for other people listening. You know what it's done to me? It's made me think of this one little creature even more. And I think my brother took a little short film of it, so I'm going to try and find it. So thank you, Marima, for highlighting that. And I suppose I would like to just kind of leave everyone thinking, you know, if you're not too clear, I mean, I'm going to assume you're all passionate about sustainability. If you are not yet too clear about how that passion for sustainability links to your purpose, then I would encourage you to either do some self-reflection or engage in a discussion with somebody that you know and trust, to kind of work that out. Because there's no question in my mind that through that self-reflection, through those discussions, I now feel much more strongly connected to both my values and my purpose, so that it drives me forward in these good things that I feel are worth doing. And it feels great. You know, it feels really good. I'm not saying it's easy, but it feels really good. And I think back to the time, you know, in big corporate when they would say, you need your 5-year plan, Justin. And I'm thinking, I don't know what my 5-year plan is. And you know what? I don't actually need a 5-year plan. I know from my other work and strengths that that's just not me. Having the purpose, however, having those values more strongly embedded in me, that is making a difference. Yes, my path will wind. It's not a 5-year plan. My path is much more winding, and that's how I like to be. But values and purpose are supporting that. And it's a nice place from which to go. It helps me on that journey. I will end there and pass back to Pam and Minu.
Thank you. And also words, and I think you're absolutely right. I never had a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. I do have very purpose-driven plans. Like I know what I want to do, and I know where I want to go. And the way I wanted to go about that, I've always been about social inclusion and social sustainable development. 10 years ago, although still wanting to go in the same direction, purpose was the same, only I was studying to become a lawyer, which is absolutely the opposite of what I'm doing right now. But it was still with the same purpose. And I took different roads and different professions and went about it in different ways, but the purpose was always the same. And that led to that I actually sort of was able to stack a lot of different insights and knowledge and different like skills on top of each other. And now I know a lot better how I can work towards that purpose. If you ask me a year ago to define my purpose, it would be the same as it is right now. Although over the last year, I've talked about it so much and with so many people and had so many discussions that I do feel a lot more connected to it right now. And I can communicate it better, I can explain it better, I can also work towards it better because it's more visualized. So I think indeed participating in discussions around this topic and just continuously talking about it, you will be surprised how many people will change their behavior or their opinion or their purpose because of you. Like often I don't even realize, I just keep talking about things and I don't realize that I touch and like inspire people with my actions. And then like a couple weeks later, a couple months later, they tell me, oh yeah, I started doing this or I stopped doing that because of you. Not that I actually ever told them to do so, but they just got inspired. So really talking about your purpose and communicating it, and also like, I don't know how you say it, like people feel it. I think people can really feel when you do something because you really are really passionate about it. And then they will easily or easier follow you in that path. So I want to end it there and give the last words to Pam.
Oh my God, how can I possibly have the last words after that?
So sorry.
I think you've said it all. I could not agree more with anything that you like, and Justin, you too, Marinma as well. I think a lot of people we tend to focus on what we're doing way more than why we are doing certain things. But if you try to take that path and you look at what you're doing and you're looking at those different areas that you're working in the end, it's like a bullseye. Like they lead to something, and it kind of makes sense in a certain way. But it's a discovery to figure out what that linking pin is between all of the things that you're doing. And once you find it, it definitely becomes so much more, it's like a moral compass. It becomes so much more easy to say no to things, even to decide what you want to do and what you don't want to do. So yeah, anyways, yeah, too many things being said. We're already 2 minutes past the hour. I'm seeing a lot of people joining the Slack channel already, so amazing. Like Minu said, we just started this week, so it's really excited to see where we can take this and how it's going to evolve. So I hope to see you all there. Please don't be shy. It's a very empty Slack channel. Please don't be shy to just write the first message or drop the first question in there. And yeah, next month, the 4th Tuesday of February, we'll be back with another sustainability session. We haven't decided on the topic yet. So if you have a suggestion, just drop it in the Slack as well. We're always happy to get some tips and ideas from you. And I hope to see you all there. Thank you very much, Justin, Carrie, and Marinma for joining us tonight and sharing your words of wisdom with us. What else? Am I missing something, Manu?
I think you said it all. No, I think you said it all. And I want to say again as well, thank you, Justin, Carrie, and Marinma. And I mean, what happened, what I hoped would happen, happens. I hoped for a very, very lively discussion where participants would join in. And it's awesome to see that it actually happens and that purpose and sustainability are such driving and important topics for so many of us. So yes, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
So
and
thank you.
I hope to see you in the next
session.
session.
And thank all of you for being so active and coming on camera and joining us. So see you soon. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.